All right. I don't know. We play all these buttons so many times. Josh, why don't you go ahead and instead ask me how business is doing, okay? Go ahead and ask me.
How are your ventures in business going?
Booming! Show me the fire!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hidden Oaks Overdose Football Fix podcast. I am one of your lovely hosts, the Garlic Johnson. We are joined, as always, by our other lovely host, the Joshua Mitchell. Josh, say hi to the folks out there.
Beep, boop, bop.
We appreciate you for joining us on this Tuesday evening, January 10th, 2023 at 8 p.m. or whatever the hell time it is for Mika, probably like 6 in the morning or something, 4 in the morning, who knows. 10, okay. But yeah, we appreciate everyone for joining. Just like Mika is right now, we appreciate him interacting in the Discord. I'm sure he'll be there for every second of the Cincinnati Bengals playoff journey. We got the segment start times down in the description below. Tonight's show is going to be a little bit longer. We got more stuff to get to, so not quite the half an hour, probably closer to an hour, just if I had to guess. Maybe even longer. Who knows? Maybe we'll keep Josh trapped here for 2 hours. No, just kidding. But thank you also at Levi Oki Illustration on Instagram for all the beautiful art. Josh, we done.
Darren. How are you, Gar?
Good. I mean, it's been a full week since we podcasted last. I don't even know if you remember how to do it at this point. But nothing as anything really. And we normally talk about personal life in this little bit, and then we, get into football in a second. But holidays are over. Nothing really big happened holiday-wise. I mean, we had to go back to work with our government jobs. How's that been? The transition back into not being off a bunch for the holidays. Do you hate it already? Taking a bunch of vacay?
Yeah, no, I've already planned on taking the next 6 months off, mentally at least, just to kind of get back in the groove. But no, otherwise things are going good. I had the check engine light come up on my car a couple weeks ago, and true to my nature, every time I started my car, just kind of looked at it and said, "You know what, bud? I'm just gonna wait for you to burn out."
Covered it with duct tape.
I think that happened today. Yeah, I got one of those, those stickers that you get in elementary school that are just a smiley face. Put that over it. So every time I look at it to check, it's like, oh, it's happy.
It's a light up smiley face.
Yeah. But no, I couldn't see the check engine light did turn off. Probably has something to do with the black smoke coming out the hood of my car, but I think it looks cool.
Remember a couple years ago when you couldn't come to, I think it was the Dynasty Draft. You couldn't show up to the Dynasty Draft because you had there was a bunch of acid all over your battery or something. Your battery exploded, I think. Not like exploded, but broke. I don't know. Wild time. Shout out to the Nissans, brother. But yeah. And don't worry, I'm sure you're very familiar with every single day off you have, Josh, but I know the government likes to ease us back into it, so we have next Monday off. So, we're working a 5-day work week here, but then we're back to 4 next week just to ease us back into the year. We get Monday off, so don't be too scared.
I have to drive in for training tomorrow.
Oh my God. Have you thought about putting in your resignation?
Well, they're only making me drive to Andover, so it's 2/3 of my trip essentially, maybe closer to 4/5, but going in there, and it's from 8:30 to 10, so I have
disgusting
half hour blocked off for travel time to get there, which is allowed, and then I think that I'm going to run into some car issues and have like a 6-hour commute home. So
makes sense to me. All right, you ready to start talking football, pal? We got plenty to cover on the docket tonight.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's start talking about it right away, Josh. Rant and Rave here one last time for the 2022, at least regular season. How are we feeling about Week 18 of football?
Well, I'm excited for it to happen. I'm looking forward to this weekend's slate of games.
Yeah.
A lot of things on the line for quite a few teams on whether or not they make it to the dance or not, and should be a good time.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm not going to do it, Gar. I'm not going to give Mika his satisfaction of blowing up on the Packers.
Are you in denial?
I'm not denying anything.
Have you traveled back in time?
I'm excited for Week 18 of the 2023 NFL football season.
But Josh, what if I told you maybe you got so insufferable at home, your wife just hit you over the head very hard, and you lost consciousness or a bit of temporary or permanent amnesia. What if I told you Week 18 already happened?
I would say have my wife hit me again, but this time use the sharp part of the shovel.
No, you got in your notes here that Jamal Williams is the national treasure. Do you want to speak to that? If you don't have to go negative on the Packers, although the fans are literally asking for it. If you want to talk about that debacle, if you want to explode.
So I've been saying they've been dead since week 7, and last week, whatever Sunday, they just went out and proved it. Last week I had said, oh yeah, they had a great win over the Vikings. Just built me up enough confidence to just absolutely tear me down on Sunday night against Detroit. And you want to know what happened, Gar? They tore me down. The second Mason Crosby kicked his 3rd field goal in the first half, I looked at myself and I said, I really wish the liquor stores were still open, because I'd go invest in stock, and then I'd go buy everything, and I'd try and drown myself, because this is garbage. I could tell Aaron Rodgers, he's toast. He's throwing in with his right hand. He should be throwing with his left, probably get more accurate. Christian Watson, he's going to be great, but doesn't matter, because that's going to be the only positive thing on that team. So next year when we go 2-15, and then we follow that up with a 4-13 or a 4 and whatever, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to start growing my playoff beard now. I'm not shaving until the Packers make the playoffs.
Josh, do you want your beard to be used as a fucking broom by 3 years from now?
And I'm already probably going to shave this week. It's garbage. I hate everything. True to the Packers, I don't hold my word. They said they're going to be good. They weren't. They weren't dead. They were. Okay. Jamal Williams, he is a national treasure, and I'm a Lions fan. One pride.
Big shout out to the Lions. Josh has converted his fandom across the border to Detroit. But
his introduction, first off, Jamal Williams' game introduction, I don't even know what he said, but it was probably some Naruto or something that he's into. But he had the little headband on with the bling, and he had the goofy smile. And then that goofy bastard playing Pokemon Go on the sidelines went out there and ran for 2 touchdowns. Broke Barry Sanders' record, which just goes to prove that Jamal Williams is the best Lions running back ever. He put up, I don't even know, 70 yards. He then goes off, has one of the best post-game interviews, said that, he did that game for his grandpa, who just passed away this past week. He loves his grandpa. He broke down in tears, and he said, don't let these tears fool you. I ain't soft. We the new Lions. Ruff, 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 or I don't even know what he said, but yeah. The only thing that made it so I'm not actually blowing up is that it was the Lions and Jamal Williams that beat the Packers. If it had been any other team in the NFL, I may have given Micah some of the best content that we've ever had. So you'll have to wait till next year, bud.
Might have gone with the nuclear option, eh?
Oh yeah.
Did you? So I know you said this in the chat. I believe you said it in the chat, yes, or on Sunday. But do you think the Lions were taking? Do you genuinely? Because I'm just asking, I'm not like trying to like get you with a gotcha or anything. But do you genuinely think the Lions were trying harder because they had nothing on the line? You don't think they would? You think they would have played very differently had they had a chance to get into the playoffs? Like the hook and ladder and the pass at the end of the game.
The hook and ladder and the pass at the end of the game are probably the only couple plays that I'd seen that were kind of off kilter that I don't think they would have done if it was to get into the playoffs, just because of where they were at in the game, because they had already had the lead. I think that they would have been more comfortable running the ball and just kind of maintaining that lead, because obviously the Packers offense couldn't move the ball, against paper mache defenders. And they were doing just fine, and Detroit was doing just fine. But yeah, the hook and ladder was a big one that I don't think that they would have done if they were playing with something on the line. But it's a loose team when they know that they have nothing to lose out there, and they're out there and they're just just slinging the rock, having fun.
All right, shout out. Also, I guess apparently we're going away from the use of Black Monday anymore, so I'm mentioning it just because I'm sure that's what most people know it as. But certainly a very less eventful, day after the season, or a couple days after the season than last year. Last year, I believe there were 12 or 13 head coach vacancies. It was an astronomical amount coming out of last season. A lot of head coach opportunities are out there. As of right now, I believe it was only Nathaniel Hackett who was out a week or two ago. Lovie Smith, the man with the most glorious beard in the entire NFL, he was out still on Sunday. They fired him on Sunday. And then Cliff Kingsbury was also announced as fired. And who knows if he ever does anything again. But what do you feel about those opportunities? Do you feel like any other coaches will get fired who are kind of on the hot seat, or do you think, or who would you like to see fill any of those 3 seats?
Yeah, I guess I would like to see Urban Meyer in Denver. I think him and Russ would med.
We're both struggling with words tonight. Yeah, meld.
I'm having a stroke today. I think that they'd coerce together. I don't even know. I hate myself. I just want to go back and say that Week 18 is bullshit. I hate the Packers. Nope, not going to do it. Sorry, Micah.
Josh is on the cusp of having a mental breakdown right now. I don't know if anyone else really appreciates what we're living through on this podcast.
The Kingsbury news it came as a surprise, but then when I thought more about it, it was kind of expected because he has not had a good, dating back to week 8 of last season, he's not had a good track record. Kyler Murray, he's a little toddler running around out there. He doesn't know how to read. And kind of, I think I saw a tweet from somebody saying that entire franchise went downhill the second that homework clause got released. And it's kind of true. The only bright spot that team has is J.J. Watt, who's knowing how it's going to implode on itself, and he's getting out this year. And going on to Lovey, I've done some petty things in my life. I don't think I've ever done anything as petty as him. And for that, I applaud him, and I wish him nothing but the best. Maybe a head coaching job in another city. But the fact that he had the carousel quarterbacks, injuries left and right, guys didn't want to play, and he had. So it was obviously a rebuilding year. Was it the kind of, look at how diverse we are. We hired a black head coach. And then they just decided, you know what? Maybe next time, because I thought he did fine. He showed that he could win a game, especially week 18. But no, that was the pettiest of all petty things. And I applaud him because I got a kick out of it.
I mean, so I guess we've already probably spent more time on this than I thought we would, and maybe if the show ends up going too long, we can just cut it up and do another little one later or whatever. But I'm really curious, because I mean, obviously these organizations like the Denver Broncos, if they had a decision between Hackett and Wilson, and maybe similarly for the Arizona Cardinals if they have to choose between Kingsbury and Murray, when they invest these big public contracts of hundreds of millions of dollars into their quarterbacks, of course they're going to take that investment over the coach, right? That's all right, we'll just find a new coach. And we know they're paying the coaches a lot of money too, but those contracts are usually much less public. Do you think there will ever be a pendulum swing in the NFL where organizations start to choose their coaching staff over quarterbacks, or do you think they'll always pick the player as their flagship and then fill in the pieces around that player? Because I don't feel like we can genuinely know for sure. The same way we couldn't for sure know if it was Brady or Belichick who was really the greatest, and obviously it's a combination of the two in reality, but do you think there will ever be too many organizations that go with the coach instead, or do you think they'll always kind of be like, all right, we're sticking with the player and we'll find a new coach?
I don't know, just because granted it is Cleveland, but they went with a player that they hadn't seen play who had more sexual assault allegations than wins in his career. And so they stuck with him over a guy who got them to the playoffs. To me, it just looks, Cleveland as kind of the small sample size is saying, well, we want to go with player over anything else, or player with talent over anything else. And obviously quarterback position being important. I do think that Russ's contract had them kind of locked away into, they had to go with him because his rant after getting cut would probably be a lot more tear-filled than mine. And then he'd short circuit his robot wiring, and then there would be a fire, and it'd just be a disaster. But yeah, no, that is a good question, because both those Two of those three teams had, the big contracts to their new starting or to their starting quarterback. Both of those starting quarterbacks underperformed, and so the coaches are the ones that are taking it. Lovey, on the other hand, came into a situation where there weren't many expected wins,
Dougie.
based on who they had on the roster, but. And so that's just a different situation. Obviously, Carolina was Matt Rule, I believe, who got fired.
Yeah.
And so he was, first off, he was a goofy goober to begin with. And so him being gone, they love their new guy up there. That team actually looks pretty solid in the past few weeks. And then you have Frank Reich in Indy, who apparently just didn't know how to coach anything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that we'll ever see that shift to where the players are the ones, just because they know that teams know that if they get cut, they'll get picked up somewhere else, and then those contracts might be on the books still, depending on how they're written.
Right. Yeah. So I was just curious on your mind on that. So yeah, just to like you said, to clarify, I believe there's 5 open coaching positions, not the 3 I'd alluded to, because Matt Rule got fired way early in the season, then Wright got fired, 4 or 5 weeks ago at this point. So there's 5 open coaching positions, I believe, and it's kind of surprising to see Ron Rivera still around, and it sounds like Sean McVay might leave, and so there's some intrigue to watch. We'll see, and where does Sean Payton go? Does anyone trade for his rights from the Saints? Who knows? A lot of intrigue there, a lot of interesting stuff. And then Derek Carr, maybe it's not, but it sounds like the Raiders can't afford to get rid of Josh McDaniels. Sounds like poor Davis doesn't have enough money to sign new coaches, allegedly. Of course, this is all alleged, but so there might ship out Derek Carr.
He drives 6 hours to get his hair cut. So, yeah, he's spending gas money in Las Vegas.
All right. Davis is a good man. We're going to move on. I renamed the weekly recap to the Hoodlines just out of laziness so we can mention the Skybusters one more time. But, Josh, go ahead and give us a lovely good Hoodlines intro, even if we're not reading Hoodlines in the traditional sense.
Hoodlines, Skybusters.
Wow. There it is.
FanDuel top 3. I think I found it.
I think that's it. That's the stride we hit next year.
So the top 3 weekly totals for this past week. We're not going to talk about good players because, based on the scores, there weren't any. But Jack Mehoff with 115.36. The Shitabyss himself, T, probably only his 3rd contest, so not going to win a top 10 overall score, but he put up 112.12. And then Panic Man Walters panicking with a 99.12 to round out the top 3. Our top 3 leaderboard on the season, Nikita held on to her lead by 8 points. 1311.48. I do not know. I don't think she finished last, but I don't think she finished higher than 3rd to last in the last week's contest. Jack Mehoff with the 2nd place finish. He managed to close the gap by 8, but he needed an additional 8 more in order to surpass Nikita. And then Garbanzo's bestest Bean with 1287.18. He stayed pat in 3rd place for his money to be doubled.
And I do believe coming out of last week, I think Nikita had bumped up her lead by about 10 points. So if Nikita had not performed well last week, it looks like Mehoff would have passed her up just barely and taken the crown. So shout out to Nikita. We love you being a part of the podcast family. Probably our number one fan, probably the most dedicated listener. Not a contributor, but we don't need that. She contributes to Josh Life's enough. She deserves a break. But we appreciate Nikita for listening so much. A well-deserved $130 for their first place. Jack,
nope. She only won 110. She only send me 20. Finder's fee.
I'll send her 130, and then you guys can fight over it. Or I can keep 110, and you guys can each get your own bracket, and I just use 20 for that. But anyways, Jack, you get $40, and then Glenn, I'll send you 20. Not that Glenn listens to this, but we'll move on here, Josh. But putting you on the spot, you're probably gonna fail epically. But if anyone can improv, it's you. Try and give your best hoodline for Nikita's championship. Talk about how this little blonde bombshell, I don't know, wrecked the league. I don't know. What do you got? What can you get on the spot, man? Come on, be funny, man.
I can't. It's my wife, but congrats to Nikita with her amazing contribution to the FanDuel Hoodcast play along. You did it. Yay.
I love that. Thank you, Josh. That was better than anything you could have come up with. We'll move on. We'll talk about, Josh, at the beginning of the season, we pick season-long studs and season-long duds. And, we go back and forth on who performs better in this. I think you creamed me last year. This year, I've bested you a bit. But last year, I think you had, like, no misses on your duds. Like, your dud picks were the kiss of death. But without rambling too much, let's just get right into it, Josh. We picked 4 players, kind of went down each position, 4 studs, 4 duds each, 8 players total. And, based on their projected score, if they overperform, they're a stud. If they underperform, they're a dud, and it's that simple. Just got to start going down the list, Josh. Who was your QB? Why'd you pick him as a stud, and did they end up making you proud or sad?
I picked Jared Goff as my stud. He was a stud, all right. 273.8 was his projected total. He had 328.7 for a 55-point swing. So thank you, Mr. Goff.
Shout out to Jared. I'm going to go ahead and blame Eric's and all of Latvia for this one. I had picked Mitch Trubisky as my stud because I thought he was going to be the starter all season. I thought they were just going to sit Kenny Pickett. They didn't, which is disappointing. He was projected, almost 140 points coming into the season. Didn't even crack 90, so I lost about 52 points on Mitch Trubisky. And so fuck you, Mitch. I could have scored way better, but you let me down. Josh, who do you got next?
Next, I've got Zamir White, running back for, I think he's still in Vegas.
Allegedly.
No, because he never played. Only 7 total points, which was only 86.8 points under his projected 93.8. So thank you for ruining all of the hard work Jared Goff did, and then some, sir.
Yeah, did Zamir White let you down hard? I kept it within the White family, though. I had Rashad White for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He ended up crushing his projection. He was only projected 96. Backup running back for the Buccaneers. He almost scored 140, so he gained me about 43 points there. So between the first 2 players, I'm still negative, but only about negative 10, whereas yours like negative 30. How embarrassing.
Yeah, moving on to the wide receivers, we're not going to get any better. Romeo Doubs is projected 118.6. He had a string of injuries that kept him off the field for a while. I believe he would have passed that if he would have played, but who knows with that offense being as atrocious as it was at times. His actual score was only 101.6, so negative 17. Continuing the trend of me not being very good at doing things that a podcast host should be good at doing.
Yeah, it's tough. I stuck with you there. I had a Packers receiver as well. I was like, all right, Sammy Watkins. Someone has to emerge in this Packers receiving core. It was not Sammy Watkins. He continues to disappoint everyone. Yeah, Raven now. Not when I picked him. He wasn't a fucking Raven in the preseason, I tell you that. He's projected about 82, only got 46.5. So the negative 10 I just was. I'm back down to negative 45 because Sammy contributed negative 35. That son of a bitch. Fuck Sammy Watkins.
My tight end stud was Hayden Hurst. He started off promising. Almost, I thought he was going to hit his projected 129.9. Turns out he did not want to do that. He got hurt at some point in the season as well. He only put up a 105.4 for a negative 24.5 point differential. Rounding out my studs with only 1 out of 4 correct and a negative 73 point swing.
That is brutal. My tight end wasn't super flashy, but I definitely found a bit of a diamond in the rough in terms of fantasy. Tyler Conklin, tight end for the New York Giants. I wasn't sure if Tyler Conklin or TJ Uzama, whatever the fuck. Maybe Mika could tell me the pronunciation because he's a former Bengal, but TJ, whatever the fuck, they weren't sure who was going to be the better tight end coming out of there, but Tyler Conklin had a pretty respectable season, 131.5 points. That gave me a positive 46.3 off his projection, and overall, I did not do well. I had 2 of 4 that were right. Uzama, there we go. Thank you, Mika. He speaks English better than we do. Anyways, with my stud picks, I had 2 good and 2 bad. I only netted 2.7 points, so pretty average, if not poor performance on picking studs. You'd want more positive points than that, but way better than Josh's negative 73. Could you imagine?
Yeah, no, I try not to.
What do we got for duds here, Josh?
Definitely missed on this one. I had Patter Holmes. I thought that, he'd be a victim of the lack of receiver options as much as the guy in the green team that I should have gone with. But Patter Mahomes only had, he was projected 397.2, which is a heck of a lot, but he managed to surpass that with a 469.9 points. giving me a great start to my duds with a negative 72.7, which just so happens to be 0.7 points away from what my total was for studs. So starting off great.
Yeah, Josh, I just talked about a second ago. I just did pretty average on my studs. I nailed my duds this year. Even if none of them, had tragic like season-ending injuries like your guys did last year. I wasn't a kiss of death, but these guys all underperformed, all missed a bit of time, this and that. My dud quarterback was Aaron Rodgers. I knew the green and gold was going to struggle, thanks in part to fucking Sammy Watkins. So probably shouldn't have picked him as a stud in retrospect, but you got to hedge your bets. Aaron Rodgers was projected 351 basically, and he only hit 276.15, so that nets me 75 points right there. So that is a big pickup in the stud and dud game, and I'm starting to pull away from Josh big league, but we'll see how Josh does with his last 3 picks here. Josh, who was your running back dud?
Me, Jacobs, Josh Jacobs, running back, the guy who played the entire Hall of Fame game and was rumored to be somebody who was kind of on the chopping block under the racist Mike McDaniels or whatever his name is, Josh McDaniels out there in Las Vegas. Turns out that it was not. Yeah. I don't know. He was projected 209.8, but he somehow managed to get 328.3 points. So difference of 118.5. Not a good pick there, but he might have been the running back on the championship team this year. I don't know. But yeah, he was not a dud.
Shout out to Carl Bear, who lasted a good 5 minutes listening to the show. That's Showbiz Baby, and then he left. Carl Bear. One love. But yeah, Josh Jacobs had a great season. Moving on, Josh, I had DeAndre Swift as my dud running back, and not because I think he's a dud. He's obviously one of the most talented running backs in the NFL when healthy, but he hasn't completed a season yet, and that trend stayed the same this year, missing some time, getting banged up. He's projected 254.1, only got 191.1, so that is another 63-point pickup for me. Not that I'm cheering for DeAndre Swift's demise, but, when you call things, you always feel good about it, so shout out to me picking up more points. Josh, it's getting pretty ugly for you, pal.
I mean, we already know you're kicking my butt this season. You said it ahead of time, so no need to keep doing that after every single pick. But yeah, here's one that I got right. This was Deebo Samuel. He was projected 260.3. He ended up with 168.4, so gave me a 91.9 positive swing, which just so happens to be the biggest difference in the correct direction of any of the players that either of us picked for studs or duds. So
congrats.
Yep, you suck.
I had Micah. I'm sure wasn't happy about this one in preseason, but the wide receiver dud I picked for this year, just because I didn't think they were going to live up to the hype. And to be fair, he did technically come in under his projection. He missed a couple games. Jamar Chase was my dud wide receiver pick. He was projected 275.7, only got 242.4. So again, I think that's just. I'm sure he would have broke his projection if it wasn't for the couple missed games. Players get banged up, it happens. But still gained 30 points there. So unfortunately, I was right. Sorry, Micah. He's still a great player. Not as good as Justin Jefferson, but one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL. Josh, your final pick?
Moving on to tight end, I had George Kittle. He was projected 180.9, and all the way up until Brock Purdy entered the season, he probably would have been below that. But then Brock Purdy came in and just decided, you know what? He's got pretty cool hair. I'm going to throw it to him. So he hit 200.5 points, giving me a negative 19.6 differential. Rounding off my duds, netting me a negative 118.9.
Well, you can't win them all, Josh. I thought my tight end was going to be much more of a dud than he was. He was kind of a bit of a statistical anomaly, to be honest. I had Dallas Goedert, projected 150.4, got 141.2, and he missed like half the season. I feel very confident if Dallas Goedert had stayed healthy, he would have crushed this projection. So you feel bad for the man who's succeeding. I figured there were just going to be too many mouths to feed in Philly, now that A.J. Brown had gotten traded there in the offseason. But Dallas Goedert was having a really good season, was on pace to have a great season, but was still technically a dud, but definitely did way better than I thought he was going to do. Overall, in all my dud picks, I netted a total of 180.5. My best position between studs and duds was my running backs. I netted 106 there. My worst position was the wide receivers, got -2 there. But overall, in the studs and duds game of gains and losses, I netted 182.75 points. That's my final score. Josh, how do you do?
Bad. Overall, my best was wide receivers. I netted 74.9 positive. My worst was running backs. I got negative 205.3. And I netted combined negative 192.3 points.
Ooh, so let's just go ahead and do the math here. That's how much that's. Oh, nope, I did the math wrong there. Shout out to public education. Difference of 375 points, Josh. Oof, that's.
Yeah, I was thinking we could, it'd be fun is kind of doing like a cumulative like point differential dating all the way back to when we started doing this.
Well, Josh, this is a big game of what have you done for me lately. We don't need to go back with all the bad takes we may or may not have had over time. If we're going to start digging into the fucking closets of bad takes, I'm sure I could find someone new. I don't think this is a war we want to start.
No, it's not a war. It's literally, like you said, we have like an every other thing going here. And so if you're doing it, so 375.05 is the difference this year. 375 last season. I bested you by 592.
Whoa, Josh, what are we looking up facts
2 years
for?
ago, 2 years ago you bested me by like 90. 3 years ago I bested you by 614.
That's all right. This is fake news at this point. You were spreading disinformation.
Okay, so 3 years ago was fake. But no, we have been doing an every other type deal. Injuries play a big role in it. So if we're going to take out all of the injuries, I probably would have beat you again this year.
Shut the fuck up. Injuries are part of it. I literally picked DeAndre Swift because I knew he'd get injured.
Well, that's mean. He has a family.
Yeah,
Did you pick DeMar Hamlin too?
He's also a millionaire. All right, Josh. Jesus Christ. We're moving on. Studs and duds. Josh, you didn't have a good year, but you'll be back next year. Let's move on to our 272 review. We're halfway through the show, and right now we're definitely not on pace to be done in under an hour, and I know how much you covet your precious time. So let's go ahead and let's talk about our 272, Josh. Before the season starts, we predict every game. It used to be the 256, and now it is the 272. We predict every single game before a snap is played in the regular season. How did we do, and why are we smarter than every other podcast host on the planet?
Well, I do think that we are providing false information for everybody because it's technically the 271 this year.
Well, that doesn't sound nearly as nice as 272. So,
right. So it's Goodell, get on it. And now I forget kind of what your question was.
How did we do?
We did pretty close. Like as far as just overall percentages of getting everything correct, I guess my overall accuracy was like 58.5%. Yours was 59, 60%, somewhere in there. So yeah, I mean, pretty good. I think I looked back at the last few years, and it's similar to what our studs and duds are, where we flip flopped. But we've always been around that 60% correct in the picks. That is the week to week pick. That's not like the season wins
based
losses
on their record. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is even more impressive, getting 60% or higher in 272 games, 253 when we did it. That's pretty impressive. As far as just like the overall stuff, for I think I saw where you added it on the comps, correct?
Yeah, I should have.
Or we did the comps and stuff, and that one there, I don't even know how I took the notes. I should have told you in our pre-planning kind of thing. I typed a lot of this stuff and made up some of these mathematical computations. I did make the math up, so I don't know how accurate it is.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can go back. All right, Josh, just go back to your J272, and I'll start reading off my G stuff. So, so obviously we go every week. We predict every game week to week. We don't just look at their records. And so you said we both did about 60%, 58, 59% for the week to week games. But overall, I mean, we're scripting the week to week games to fit our general narrative of how are they going to finish the season. And so if you look in, at least on my sheet, it's columns BK through BM there. There's a couple teams that I absolutely nailed. I knew the Dallas Cowboys were going to go 12-5. I knew the Detroit Lions were going to go 9-8. I could feel it in my plums. I knew Los Angeles Chargers were going to get, double-digit wins. So there's some teams I was really, really close on. And then teams like the Rams, Tennessee, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, I was way off on. Eric's let me know all year how off I was. I predicted the Pittsburgh Steelers to only get 3 wins. They, of course, ended up with fucking 9 because Mike Tomlin is a force greater than gravity. It should be Newton's fourth law, an object in motion will stay in motion, and then, Mike Tomlin will not have a losing record. I should have fucking known. Should have gave them a 9 minimum in this new 17-game season. But, there's some teams that just absolutely nailed, and there's some teams that Arizona is really disappointed in. The Rams, obviously with Matthew Stafford, we were both going to get that one heavy wrong. But, a team like the Tennessee Titans, they really fell off, and I thought they were going to be one of the best teams in the NFL. So, that's kind of the stuff we were looking at. And then when I scroll down to by divisions here, I think similar to last year, I had NFC North. I nailed the best. I was only off by 8 games total across all 4 teams. I got Detroit exactly right. Like I said, I was only off by 1 game on Chicago. And my absolute worst division was tied for the AFC South and the NFC West. I was off by 20 games total in differential between those 2 teams. And Jacksonville and Tennessee both surprised me, and the Rams and Arizona both surprised me. So that's a tough swing. But overall, I was pretty even on the NFC and the AFC. How about you, Josh? Who do you nail an overall record, and then who were some of the big oopsies?
Yeah, I made some big oopsies a lot. I didn't nail any of them. I did get close on quite a few. Shockingly, because last year, the NFC North, we both nailed basically, if I remember correctly, because that's the division we follow the closest. This year, that was my third best. Tied for third. I was definitely a big AFC guy this season. I only had 47 games off in comparison to the 66 from the NFC.
Jesus.
And so my best division was the AFC East. I only missed 7 of those games, and then I only missed 8 games in the AFC North because I had a feeling that Cincy was going to be good and Cleveland would be middle of the pack. And then, but I did miss on Pittsburgh. I only gave them 6 wins. And then Baltimore, I think I gave them more than what they ended up with. As far as worst, that would be the AFC South and the NFC East. I had the Philadelphia Eagles being a dumpster fire because the reports out of camp were that Jalen Hurts couldn't hit the ground if he was spiking a football.
If he would have jumped out of a boat, he would have missed the water.
Yeah, the New York Giants are another one that I didn't do so hot with. I think those were my 2 of my top 3 worst predictions. The New York Giants, just because Saquon's been hurt the last 2 seasons. Daniel Jones has been just a turnover machine. Brian Daboll looks like he's an inflated fire hydrant. And so it just didn't seem so well. But that defense stepped up. Saquon stepped up, and Daniel Jones really stepped up, and they proved me wrong. They made the playoffs this year. There's quite a few teams, probably really good teams that didn't make the playoffs this year. I'm talking Super Bowl contenders teams, green teams that didn't make the playoffs this year, but the Giants did. And yeah.
I do find it interesting, just a couple more notes here, and then we'll move on to the next bit. I do find it interesting that you and I, and maybe this is just indicative of the teams in the AFC versus the NFC, but if you look at, so we all, based on all the records, we predict the 7 playoff teams for each division. You got 5 of the NFC, or 5 of the AFC playoff teams correct. You got the Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Chargers, and Baltimore. You got 5 of the 7 teams that made it right, and only 4 of the NFC teams right. And, I got 6 of the AFC teams right, but only 3 of the NFC teams right. So I don't know if that speaks to the parity in the NFC where it was a wide open race, whereas the AFC was very top heavy, or what exactly we can deduce from that. But I just think it's interesting that we were way better predicting the AFC playoff teams than the NFC playoff teams.
Yeah, that, and then there might be, that lack of bias since we're not AFC team fans necessarily. We like teams that are in the AFC, but we don't follow them as closely, so we don't nitpick things as much as we do with, the NFC North or other NFC divisions. So that might play a role in it as well.
Right. And then final note here before we move on. So we did all the records, and then we also did our power ranking. And so with records, you're only predicting, wins between 0 and 17, whereas the power rank, you rank every team 1 through 32. So there's a little bit more of a variance there. And so some of the teams, I won't even like throw it to you. I'll just say some of the teams we nailed and some of the teams we were nowhere near. Again, we both ranked the Chargers around power rank 7, and based on their win percentage, they're actually the 8th best team. So we were very close on the Chargers. And Buffalo Bills we were very close on. We were both very close on the New England Patriots. We kind of knew that, you had them power rank 20, I had them power rank 19. They ended up being, power rank 18, missed the playoffs. We both kind of predicted that. And then, what's another team? You nailed Chicago. Or no, excuse me, I nailed Chicago. I knew they were going to be the worst team in the NFL, and I was right about that. And then some of our worst teams, again, Philly. You and I were fading Philly hard, and they were the second best team in the NFL. We both were way off on Indy. I don't know how we could get that far away. And then, what's a team I was so you did better on the Arizona Cardinals than I did. You knew they were kind of be throwing. You did way better on the Rams than I did. You kind of knew they weren't going to be as good. But then, I nailed the Giants. I knew the Giants were going to be better than the worst team in the NFL that you predicted them to be. But just interesting how the power rank can really, expand that picture of what we were thinking there.
Yeah. I was also just so Eric's doesn't write me out of his Christmas list. I was closer on Pittsburgh as well. And so,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, finish your thought.
So, yeah, I was closer there. And then I was closer with Cincinnati as well.
I was just going to say, we got Micah here. All right, you had Cincinnati power ranked 11. I had them power ranked 12. We both had them making the playoffs. I know Micah was upset coming into the preseason. The Cincinnati Bengals ended up being the 6th best team. I'm sure Micah would tell you if they played their last game, they would have gone on to get the number 1 seed. But so we both had the Cincinnati Bengals being a playoff team, but you were closer to their actual power rank, so I got to give you credit. Micah, if you're going to send me a tarantula to kill me in my sleep, I understand, but we both had them making the playoffs. So let's move on here, though, Josh. We want to talk about our survey results for the league, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on these. This is more of a league discussion, but I think they're just fun to go over on the podcast since we have this live platform. So I guess, we all know the questions that were asked. I guess have you already had a chance to go through this? If not, I can go through a couple things while you read through. I'm just curious if anything stands out to you, or if you've had the chance to look at it or not. But just basically ask the people, are they having fun? What they feel about the rule changes, this and that. So curious if anything stood out to you coming out of our Hood Fantasy League this year.
Well, I want to find out who said no so we can go and we could shake them down. Because if they're not having, I'm just kidding. I don't know who. It might have been me. But no, I did have a time to go through it and look at it. Not a lot of comments on the first few questions. But I did. Nothing really stood out. It was kind of it was basically an even split for the double headers. Because I think I was the one that said that I didn't notice the difference because it looks like there was only one person who voted that. Yep. And I think that was me, but because I think I did that for all of them, just because I just wanted to be my shtick.
Yeah. I don't care about nothing. My name's Josh. I'm so cool.
Yeah. But that 50-50 swing there, or 50-50 down the middle, kind of. But then all of the comments were positive, so it's just like, huh.
We get it, Micah. We were wrong. Okay, it happens. You're in the playoffs just like we said we'd be, or just like we said you'd be. That's fine. And yeah, to your point about the double headers, I mean, I think coming into because we voted on whether or not to adopt it, and I think it was a close vote on whether or not to even try it, right? Because kind of for some of our bigger rule changes, the deal is, hey, we'll trial it for a year and we'll come back and vote on it again whether or not we make it permanent. So it will come up for a vote again next summer. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's a split issue. Half the league likes it. Pretty much half the league doesn't. One person's indifferent. You're saying it's you, so I guess it's one more share towards liking it, because I know you've been proposing it for a long time. But it's just always tough when you're a league when things are split like that, because then you got to find out, okay, if half the leagues like something and half the league doesn't, like who's going to be more stubborn, or who, not to call people jackasses, but like it doesn't get to a certain point where it's starting to ruin the league for people. You always got to be careful. It's like, all right, if some people really like this, but they're also not going to quit if we go away from it, you kind of got to parse people out and just make sure, because again, I think the number one thing we're trying to do here is have fun. So once this issue comes back up, we'll just have to see, who is it really a sticking point for, and then, can we accommodate them, or is it worth accommodating them? All that kind of more politicky type stuff. But it's interesting that it's a split issue, so we'll break that down again in the summer. But yeah, no really comments stood out to you, at least on this league survey. I didn't. One good side bet idea. I thought unlucky winners, either like the most sacked QB or the lowest ratio of the lowest yards per carry, or lowest yards per catch, something like that. I think that's fun.
You liked my idea?
Yeah, I'm always looking for new side bet ideas. We've got a bank of them, and we just pick out random ones. So I always want more.
Yeah. I did see that, because it's just like, holy cow! Could you imagine having a quarterback gets like, I mean, yeah. I don't know. Obviously, not the time and place to chat more about that, just because it's still, it's just now the postseason of football. But the first suggestion there for side bets, everyone named Bradley gets $5. That is a interesting side bet idea. I do think that it would be very difficult since we will no longer have a Bradley in the league next season, because I don't want to have to pay somebody named Bradley $5.
Right. And then going on to the final comments here, I think one person, I don't know how serious this comment was, because I could look up who said it, and maybe I can text him about it. But one person said expand to 16 teams or go to Superflex, and then they said they're finally on board to get rid of the tight end position. Josh, is that you? Do you want to come clean, or is that not you? Because I genuinely don't know.
That was definitely not me. I want to say that was Derek.
Could be.
But I don't know why he would. Well, maybe he would because he's that every other champion. Sure. And so this year was his year to finish, bottom 3. So next year he knows he's going to be top 2, not 2. And he's going to get the 16 team payout. So that, because then I'm sure if we did 16, then this next retrospective next season we'll say cut down to 12.
Right. I mean, and again, I think I've stated multiple times, like, if people end up quitting the league, I don't think I'm going to force to fill it to 14. Like, if someone wanted to quit, like, we're sitting at 14 right now. Let's say one person's like, hey, I'm not going to be back next year. I think at that point it would be awkward for me, but I'll just send out a text and be like, hey, is anyone on the fence about it, or do 2 people want to team up and be like owner and co-owner or whatever? Because, like, I'm definitely not afraid to go back to 12. It's just we have 14 really good people. Like, I know I pruned out Nate. We pruned out Robin, who, like, no one in the league really vibed with. Not that Robin's a bad person, but it's not the right fit based on how she drafted. Kyle and Jordan weren't going to last, so like we just have 14 really good people. So I'm not afraid of going to 12, but there's just no one in the league I want to get rid of. So if someone voluntarily leaves, that's fine, and I'm fine with keeping the league at 12 just to address it. But there's 14. I don't think there's one person in the league you'd say you'd want to get rid of either. So
Can we get rid of Walters? Could we add him to the league and then just get rid of him before it starts?
I mean, that won't bring us down from 14, though. You'd just be going.
I know, it's just getting rid of somebody.
Would you like a job starting right now? Boy, would I. You're fired. Thanks, Mr. Krabs. And then one person said revisit the IR spot for next year. I mean, I can bring it up again, but it already got voted down once, so we'll see. And then one person says explore the idea of an 8-team playoffs, because right now we have a 17 playoffs. So those things we'll bring up next year, and we'll see. So we appreciate people taking that survey.
Top 2 teams getting a bye, and then 5 are seeded, 3 through 7.
Was this your idea, Josh?
Yeah. The 8th spot was determined by, so like a wild card spot determined by the points for and not the record. So if the 8th ranked team has like the 3rd lowest points for, they would not get in the playoffs, and the guy with the next highest points for would.
Right.
Or girl.
And so Josh, go ahead and pick me a number between 1 and 14 real quick, because when we get full participation in the survey, we pick one random lucky winner to win $20 just as an incentive for people to take the survey. So go ahead and pick me a number between 1 and 14, and that will be the winner of 20 doll hairs. And
11.
11? Okay. I don't have the document pulled up yet, so I'm not fibbing.
3.
Nope. You already said 11. That's going to be based on the draft order. So whoever picks 11th based on how we finish this year will get the $20. And that is, or not who picks 11th, but whoever finished, you know what I mean. So 14 is Derek, 13 is Hammer. It's you, Josh, you son of a bitch. All right, that's fine, though. All right, so it's Derek, Hammer. So, I just want to confirm this for myself. Derek was 14, Hammer's 13, Willie's 12. Yep, Josh, you have 9 ping pong balls. You finished 11th based on the regular season, so you'll get $20, dude. The fix is in. No one will believe me, but luckily not too many of our league members actually listen, so you'll probably skate under the radar. Real quickly.
Wait.
Ooh, go ahead.
Finished 11th. Was that last year?
Oh yeah. What am I? Am I looking at the wrong thing? Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Well, no. You already said it.
I am. Okay, so hold on. So it's Jesse. Yeah, I was looking at last year. So this is going to look at this year. So Jesse's 14, Jamie's 13, Garrett's 12. Willie wins $20. All right. Shout out. The fix is not in.
Didn't he get $20 for having the lowest points? This is rigged.
Hey, man. Who knows? But yeah, so Willie actually wins $20. Willie won't listen to this, but I'll just send him $20. That's fine.
No. You already said me. I couldn't change my number. I couldn't change my number.
You corrected me. I never would have noticed the error I made. I never would have thought about it, but you corrected me. You cost yourself $20 there, pal. Nikita,
well, if you get to change it, then I get to change mine to 3 because that was the second number I said. So who got third place?
No, we've moved on. All right, Josh, real quickly, pull up. I don't know if it looks like you don't have it pulled up right now. We have a little section of the survey for the podcast. Excuse me. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at the podcast survey or not, but this also kind of moves into the what's next. So maybe we'll talk about this here in one of our last sections here, because you also made up a little idea section for the pod. So we'll go over this survey in this section.
That idea wasn't necessarily to talk about on the podcast. That was just.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't forget things.
I mean, we can just generally talk about what's next as well. So we'll just go over the survey here from the people who took it. So we have a mixed bag. We know not all the leagues listen. Not all the members of the league listen, which is fine. We make this for us. Of course, we want a couple listeners, but we're not going to force people to listen. It's not like that. Some people say it's a fun show.
We're not the victorious
POD. Jesus, Josh. All right, so let's looking at this third question here. Based on the biggest thing we changed this year is we went from 1 hour long episode to 2 30-minute episodes. Doing on Tuesday and Saturday, excuse me. And people said they're more likely to listen with the shorter episodes. A third said they were less likely to listen with multiple shows every week. But again, half these people that answered this question are not. Even though this question wasn't required, it's not like everyone had to answer. Some people are saying they wouldn't listen if they had multiple shows in a week. So sometimes the numbers can get overwhelming. But overall, how did you feel about the switch going from 1 hour long episode to 2 half-an-hour-long episodes? How did you feel about that? And are we going to continue that next year, or how did we feel about that change this year?
I didn't mind it. I liked it. I kind of liked how we were able to break it up into more of a football-focused recap, and then the fantasy aspect on Saturdays. So I wouldn't mind bringing it back again, especially with how we crushed the start sits. And so, yeah.
So I guess, and then if your document wasn't meant to go over or whatever for the 2023 pod ideas, I guess just generally thinking about it right now. We're not making decisions right now, but just a little on-air production meeting, because this is kind of the last bit of the show. What do you think about the show for next year? What do you think you want to do? Is there anything you're thinking about right now that sounds appealing, or is there I guess, what do you feel? We always want to do something to keep it fresh going year to year, because you don't want just the same boring show year to year. You want to give a little bit of change for the people and for ourselves. But thinking towards next year, is there anything you'd want to change, or anything you'd want to add or subtract, or how are you feeling about the show in general?
I think I'm going to finally take someone's suggestion from previous podcasts and start nude.
You do YouTube in the nude. I mean, I think Micah read your mind as you were saying that out loud. Micah put that in the chat, so that was wild. Someone did say, so our last question is, what can we do to make you more interested in the podcast? Someone said bring back face cam. That's not necessarily out of the question. I would have to get a better computer still. I'm still on the computer I've been on for a long time that's stopped working this year for whatever reason. Or was that last year? Was that last year we couldn't do face? I generally don't even remember. I think it went last year at this point, but
last year, yep.
Yeah. And then I think I want to say it was Brian, but I think someone said I listen to 2 every week, but like the one longer one better. So we've lost our biggest financial contributors. That's something to consider. But yeah, so I think one thing I think we both noticed we lacked it this year, and we always like to have it, but it's not necessarily a necessity. It's like we really didn't push for it. I think intentionally, I was like, let's kind of give the fans a year off, so to speak. Like in years past, where I was like, hey, get us in your Fave Fives, give us in that. We really didn't push for fan interaction almost at all this year. Maybe the first couple weeks we mentioned it, and then we were like, all right, let's just both of us really came off the gas and didn't really even mention it show to show. But do we want to try and get the fan? I mean, of course, course, we enjoy the fans interacting, but is there anything we can, we'd have to probably cut a segment, I guess is my point, to get fans to interact again, or a more fan interaction central segment. But is that something you want to push for next year? Do we like kind of the dynamic we had this year? Or how do you feel about the fan interaction element that was kind of, away this year relative to years past when we had the Fave Favre and this and that?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm either or. It doesn't matter to me. I would be fine with kind of playing it by ear, going, hitting the concrete, hitting the pavement, asking the general public how they feel, and then revisiting this idea sometime in the summer.
Sure. That's fine. I'm just always curious, of course, how you feel about it. Because, the more we beg the fans, the more we can kind of turn them off. Because they already are nice enough to listen to us. And then we go, all right, also send us voicemails, or also send us this, or also send us that. It's always that. Sometimes it can be a delicate relationship. You don't want to, you want them to listen and to interact. But then if you're going to turn them away by asking them to do so much, then that can be, it's always a delicate balance, delicate tightrope to walk, so to speak. And I think some other podcasts found out this year how tough it can be to get some fan interaction, because it's tough to find those consistent people. And so people have been like that for us in the past. We greatly appreciate you. But okay, one last question I had for you, Josh, in terms of what's next. I know I put down here in the outro that we might do a February and a March show, but I was just thinking of what our summer policy was last year. We kind of went from the draft until August. We did one show every month just to keep it, but we actually took off between like the end of the season, and then I don't think we came back until April. So do you want to keep on doing shows once a month, or do you want to take some time away from the podcast for a couple months and then come back around draft time, or what are you feeling? Do you want to keep going, or do you want to take a break?
I would be, I think we could take a break, and then if something big were to happen, we could come back. But I don't think there needs to be too much discussion between now and then, because it's not like too much football happens other than the Super Bowl, and and all that stuff. So yeah. Right.
So we'll probably do what we did last year. Then I'll try and we always try and get the fan interaction through the off season. What the fuck did I call that group? The off season optimist, the off season something.
Yeah. Off-season optimists.
Is that what it was? Or there's the Gridiron Gossip Gang, of course, as well. But so we'll try and off-season optimists. There we go. So we'll just try and when a coach gets hired or some crazy things splash, we'll just talk about it through the Discord. And then in terms of podcasts go, we'll probably stay away until draft time in April. I know Walter's disappointed to hear that. Walter said we should keep podcasting through the playoffs and this and that. But there's less of an appetite for that from a listener standpoint, and I think we can. As much as our opinions are superior, Josh, you and I have the most superior football minds on the planet. I mean, there's no question about that. We can just share them through Discord, and we can have, interaction and sharing our thoughts that way. So
I have a Friday evening call with Mr. Billy B every week.
Right. All right, Josh. So this is the outro. Then, is there other than Go Packers? Is there anything you want to say to conclude our 2022 podcast season here? Anything you want to say to the folks? Anything you want to say to people you love? Any signing off words here if we're going to be off the air for a couple months?
Nope. I'm not even going to hit the Go Packers because they don't deserve it.
Well, since the podcast is over for a couple months, and since the regular season is over and the Packers are dead, Josh, I'm not saying you need to do an impromptu obituary. I'm not going to put you on the spot like that, but I am going to play the sad music we have been ending all our Tuesday shows with, because the podcast is over, and I think it's funny to end the sad music at this point. So if you want to go into a Packers are dead obituary, you're more than welcome to, or if you just want to let the sad music play for 2-3 minutes, that's your bit as well. But I figure I'll give you the chance right now to think about it if you want to, but as of right now, I just want to thank everyone so much for listening. I would like to thank everyone who interacts in the Discord. Of course, we've got Audio Al, we've got Walters, we've got Eric's, we've got Mika. Those are the people who really hold down the Discord for us. Brian and Jack and Nikita, you're all big listeners as well. I don't want to miss anybody, but those are certainly all the big names. Bradley, I know, starts strong and then fades off a little bit. And I don't really think I'm missing any of the big names, and I'll feel bad if I am. But if you've been a dedicated listener this year and I didn't call your name, shout, yell at me in the chat, and so I know it's real. But no, we generally appreciate everyone who listens and everyone who interacts. We got a good Discord community here who likes to chat along, and I think that's bigger than the podcast for me. Honestly, is just having. I want, ultimately, you want to be where the people want to go to chat about football. And I know Sleeper has been really good at the social aspect, but I like that when news happens or when people want to chat about shit, I like that our Discord is where they come to chat and they're like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Or, I appreciate that we're kind of the home for some people to chat about football. And if we can continue to grow that, I think that's a beautiful thing. So I just want to appreciate everyone who contributes. A community doesn't work without the people who are in it. So, everyone who gives us their time in listening and in chatting in the Discord, we appreciate you so much. So with that, Josh, the Packers are dead, and we'll play and with that, we'll play some sad music because the Packers are dead. And thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you in April-ish. Love you, bye.
I hate that fucking team. There's a lot of stuff that can be said, but I'm gonna be quiet.
You're mocking me,